On this edition of Stony Brook News, a look at how Suffolk County proposed secondhand smoking legislation. But will it make a difference? How residents are trained to use Narcan in drug overdoses, and how you can combat fake news in the 2020 election.
Welcome to this week's edition of Stony Brook News. I'm Pedro Rodriguez.
And I'm Duffy Zimmerman. Starting March 1st, New York State will ban all single-use plastic bags to encourage the use of reusable bags. The new regulation will only allow stores to hand out bags if they are washable, can be used 125 times, have a strap that doesn't stretch with use, and can carry 22 pounds. Bodega and small convenience store owners want to be exempt from the ban as concerns rise that they're not stocked with enough paper bags. Plastic bag manufacturers are calling for a delay or weakening of the ban because of concerns for the supply of multi-use bags. Basil Sagos, Commissioner of the state's Department of Environmental Conservation, says the industry has known that this has been coming for 10 months. The Nevada caucus on Saturday night resulted in a landslide win for Bernie Sanders. The Vermont senator won over 46% of the votes, earning an additional 24 delegates from the state. Sanders is followed by former Vice President Joe Biden, who won a little over 20% of the votes and secured 9 delegates. According to the Nevada State Democratic Party, approximately 105,000 voters turned out. Voters under 30 favored Sanders, while Biden led in voters over 65. All eyes are now on Sanders to see if he'll continue this winning streak this Saturday at the South Carolina Democratic primary, or if Biden will break the streak, as he is currently leading in South Carolina's polls.
Suffolk County legislators recently proposed a smoking ban in apartments and condos due to concern over secondhand smoke. But is the ban the best way to limit smoking? Josh Spitz has the story.
In 2016, Stony Brook University enacted a tobacco-free policy, banning the smoking of any tobacco products on campus grounds. While the amount of tobacco-related waste around Stony Brook's campus is down from the 14 pounds found just before the ban's enactment, there's no shortage of cigarette butts found on the ground in many campus locations, and law enforcement officials don't see it stopping. But they do think the policy is necessary.
I think something always needs to be addressed, and I think if something isn't addressed, then the policy has no teeth.
The recently proposed legislature, headed by Dr. William Spencer and legislator Sam Gonzalez, voices concern over secondhand smoke intake. That concern is echoed by doctors, who associate secondhand smoke intake mainly with lung cancer, along with some other diseases, like ear infections and upper and lower respiratory illnesses.
In terms of avoiding the inhalation of secondhand smoke, this is a really tricky thing, because oftentimes we're asking people to have some degree of control in their environment, and a lot of people don't.
While the effects of secondhand smoke inhalation are not as strong as smoking firsthand, they can be deadly. According to lung.org, secondhand smoke causes 33,950 deaths from heart disease each year. While doctors are cautious about the possibility of a ban being 100% effective, they do not deny that it will have an impact on some smokers.
You have to think about it this way. It's not going to stop everyone from smoking, but it'll stop some of them. And when we stop some people from smoking, we do see the positive health impacts.
While the effectiveness of the university's ban has been questionable, both legislators Spencer and Gonzalez believe that their ban is necessary and will be effective. While neither legislator was available for comment, both have made their opinions abundantly clear. Public hearings over the issue are expected to take place later this month. For Stony Brook News, I'm Josh Spitz.
Disgraced film producer Harvey Weinstein was convicted of rape in the third degree and criminal sexual assault. After deliberating only 4 days, a jury of 7 men and 5 women delivered the verdict in a Manhattan courtroom yesterday. Weinstein maintains his innocence and says any sexual encounters were consensual. He is facing up to 29 years in prison when he is sentenced March 11th.
Lewis Walker is here with information on how Suffolk County residents are using Narcan in drug overdoses. Lewis?
Thanks, Duffy. With the opioid epidemic having such high death tolls in New York State and Suffolk County specifically, the New York State Opioid Overdose Prevention Program has been giving out Narcan to both law enforcement and hospitals to give out to residents to use in the event of an emergency. In an effort to combat the growing death toll in the opioid epidemic, more and more people are getting trained to deliver a life-saving dose of Narcan.
Part of the reason we're seeing more people wanting to get Narcan trained is, of course, the opioid epidemic in the U.S., specifically in Suffolk County, though, is pretty bad. And so a lot of students are coming to campus having lost either friends or family members to opioids. So this is one way for them to help somebody else in need.
In Suffolk County, the number of opioid and heroin overdoses has dropped from 950 in 2017 to around 650 in 2018.
In the community, libraries, fast food restaurants, people are overdosing in the bathrooms. The people who are there have it before the first responders get there. So I think that's why we're seeing more people administer Narcan.
In 2018, the doses given out by residents surpassed those given out by law enforcement. Local residents have gotten trained to help people around them and, in some cases, people closest to them.
I have a couple of friends that have drug addiction problems, and I've been listening to the news and seeing how it's affecting everybody around us. So I just figured it was important to come here and learn a little bit more about it. Hopefully I won't ever have to use it, but now that I have the kit and I'm aware of what needs to be done, if it comes down to it, I can save somebody's life if need be.
And as of last Thursday, this reporter is now certified to use Narcan. The blue envelopes that you leave these meetings with has contents that can be used to save the lives of people around you should the situation demand it.
And Louis, what equipment is used and how is it used and how can any everyday resident use it?
Well, at these meetings, you get Narcan, which looks like these little nasal spray doses. If you've used nasal spray, if you've had a cold, you can use one of these devices. You simply put the aperture in someone's nostril if you suspect they're having an overdose and depress this plunger. It's so easy that children as young as 6 are being trained in rural Tennessee to use this life-saving device. Pedro?
Thanks, Louis. The coronavirus continues to surge across the world. Recently, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have raised the travel restriction to South Korea after a spike in the virus reaching almost 1,000. In Europe, Italy has seen a serious increase in the number of cases. 322 cases have been reported, with 11 towns and 50,000 people restricted for travel. 10 people have died, according to Italian authorities. Here in the United States, another 18 people have tested positive for the virus, according to the CDC, bringing the total number of cases in the U.S. to 57. Stony Brook's undergraduate student government has postponed the reveal of the artists who will perform at this spring's Brookfest concert. The postponement was made after the tragic death of 20-year-old rapper Pop Smoke, who was killed at his Hollywood Hills residence in an armed robbery. The rapper was one of 3 artists set to perform in April, but the USG are now looking to find a replacement. USG will announce the headliner for Brookfest at 1:30 p.m. tomorrow.
Former School of Journalism Dean Howard Schneider hosted a community dialogue on news literacy and how to avoid fake news in the 2020 election. Luis Sanchez has the story.
Stony Brook University held a community dialogue on literacy and fake news at the Student Activity Center. The event was hosted by the Center of News Literacy alongside the Center for Civic Justice, where they discussed fake news during the 2020 election campaign and how to point out false information.
This discussion focused on literacy and fake news as a result of students deciding that this is something that we really needed to focus on, giving the importance of the upcoming elections this year in 2020.
The Center of News Literacy implemented their curriculum at the School of Journalism, where they teach students how to judge whether an article is credible and reliable. Former Dean of the Stony Brook School of Journalism, Howie Schneider, discussed how this community dialogue is not only meant for students, but anyone who wants to be informed.
Academics in 15 countries are using it overseas because the problems of disinformation are not unique to the United States. They're global concerns.
We really want to make sure that everyone at your
The Center of News Literacy indicates that 4 challenges for civil society during the digital age, which include a vast amount of overwhelming information, new technologies that share information, the conflict between speed and accuracy, And internet and social media make it easy to select biased information.
Our responsibility to check and verify the credibility of information before we act on it and before we share it, and that's what news literacy teaches us how to do.
For more information on how to avoid fake news and important tips on news literacy, go to www.centerfornewsliteracy.org. For Stony Brook News, I'm Luis Sanchez.
Katie McDuffie is here with updates on Stony Brook athletics. What can you tell us, Katie?
Thanks, Pedro. It was a perfect start to the season for the ladies of Stony Brook softball. Pitcher Dawn Bodrig tossed the Seawolves' first perfect game since 2012, striking out 15 batters in the 7-0 victory against Cornell. The girls also took down Georgetown, Providence, Columbia, and Colgate. It was also a big weekend for Stony Brook men's lacrosse, who were able to take down Brown and Kenny P this Saturday in an overtime thriller. The Seawolves came back from a 3-goal deficit, making the score 10-10. With 30 seconds left on the clock, Caleb Pearson gets the game winner. A win like that calls for some sellies in the locker room. We'll just have to see if the boys will be dancing tonight after they take on Hofstra at home for the Battle of Long Island. A deep-rooted rivalry of the 631 versus the 516. Any predictions, Duffy?
Well, I don't know much, but it certainly looks like it's shaping up to be a great season. What do you think, Pedro?
I'm from the 631, so I'm going to go with the 631.
631 as well.
Today is Fat Tuesday, or as you probably know it, Mardi Gras. Celebrations around the nation mark the beginning of the Christian Lenten season on Wednesday, with the largest festival in New Orleans. Mardi Gras brings in about $1 billion for New Orleans alone, where over 25 million pounds of beads will be thrown. The average American will indulge in 4.5 drinks today, which is more than New Year's Eve or St. Patrick's Day.
That's all we have for this edition of Stony Brook News.
Have a great week, Seawolves.
Les de bon temps voulez.
Or as they say in English, let the good times roll.